Visit by an author can be a highlight in any school year. Setting up a successful event is hard work and needs careful thought. Sally Flint has run many author visits and today shares her ideas and tips.
Thanks very much. Interesting results there, from that poll. Lots to do, lots of convincing the school leaders that we count. Thank you for being here, everyone. We do all appreciate that you've made time to join us, and I'll kick off, as Andy says, with my part of the webinar. So one thing that I want to do is leave you equipped with some really practical tips that will make an author visit go off without a hitch. And in a way, that's the easy part. A lot of it is just being well organised, both before, during, and after the visit. The other part, kind of linked to what we've been saying, is unpacking the significance of having an author or an illustrator visit and work with the students. It probably seems obvious to us, but as we've been talking about, school leaders won't necessarily realise the impact on learning. So I think it's well worth us just unpacking why it's important. I mean, one obvious thing is that it gives us an opportunity to showcase our libraries, which I always love to do. But obviously it's the learning, I guess, that is key. Now, if we were all together right now, I'd probably make you a cup of coffee, perhaps give you a chocolate biscuit. I've got my provisions here, lot ready for the chat part. But I can't do that, sadly. But what we can do is put some resources together and share after the event. I've actually kind of got some stuff ready, but I just want to see if there's anything we need to add to it when we bring together our shared wisdom. Anyway, so onwards and upwards. The significance of an author visit and how to really unpack its importance. Well, we know that it creates empathy, it improves comprehension, blah, blah, blah. We could talk about that ad infinitum. But I think what is key is that it adds a personal connection with reading that perhaps a new face can bring better than or not better, in a different way to what the regular team can. So when students interact with an author, it establishes a direct link to both the written and spoken word. And as librarians, we can enhance that. I'm thinking of when we had a chap called Donovan Christopher come to visit. I don't know if you guys know him. It's AKA Rapper Man. And he goes everywhere with this bright red cloak on his back. It's quite wacky having a superhero in school. But he's passionate about what he does. He raps out his poems on acceptance, racism, tolerance. And while he was here, we took the opportunity to really sort of engage with everything that he stands for. So before we knew it, we'd got a makeshift stage in the library, and our own students were up there rapping out their poems about what was important to them. So I think meeting the creator of a book, not only, or a book of poetry, whatever, not only makes the reading experience more tangible, but it also develops a deeper love of that literature. And of course, it's loads of fun too, and that's always key in my mind. So yeah, definitely makes that connection. And it also, as you know, encourages creativity. It unleashes our children's imaginative potential. That example would work for that, but I'll just give you another quick example and talk about Corky Paul. Now, a bit of a name drop here because I've got to know him quite well, and I just can't resist everywhere I go. So talking about my friend Corky Paul, but you'll know he does the Winnie the Witch books. And he's absolutely fabulous at encouraging and unleashing that potential. So when he came to us, he captivated the younger students with Winnie, but he also conducted workshops for GCSE and IB visual arts, and he guided them through the entire process of illustrating text. So, again, they had a fabulous opportunity to really understand at a deep level what's involved in the creative process, and tons of opportunities to be creative themselves. So it's also not a bad little tip for getting school leaders on board, because if you can get someone who works across the whole school, it becomes really good value for money, I guess. Right, so on to my next point, and I think the next slide, demystifying the writing or illustrating process for students. is very important. I think by making the whole writing process more accessible, we see that in our students a kind of acceptance and a belief that they too can write at a really high level. It's not something that's too difficult for them. Someone who does this so well, and he does a lot of work in the UK now, as well as international schools, is Harry Baker. When he came to us, he seamlessly integrated into a week-long poetry writing scheme. He collaborated with the school on a unit that culminated in a showcase of both his and the students' work. It was a lot of planning. I won't pretend it wasn't for both the teachers and the librarians, but it was so worth doing. And it's essential to have the English team on board. They'll know the benefits, they'll want to do it, but like everyone else, they'll be busy. So, but I guess what I'm saying is worth it. It kind of creates a real deep level of understanding and interest and enthusiasm that goes way beyond just the visit itself. However, having said that, if detailed collaboration with a particular faculty isn't possible, I think witnessing an author's presentation still provides valuable insights into the behind the scenes of writing as a process. Author visits, obviously, when they're well planned, are just massive in motivating reluctant readers. Teachers and librarians can help this process by doing the planning work and make sure that the author isn't coming in cold. I think meeting someone who the students know has crafted a story can make the reading experience so engaging and fun and exciting. I'll talk a bit more about that as we go on to discussing how to make a 5-star visit. So I've alluded to it, but I'll just say it sort of clearly. Connection to curriculum is key. That's a massive reason, huge reason for having authors visit schools. It might be as simple as a line into a specific book, or it may be tying into broader themes that the school's exploring. Without a doubt, it enriches the educational experience and makes learning enjoyable, which is what it's all about. An example from my own school, when we had Gail Clark come and visit us, and she was exploring environmental issues, and we were looking at the ocean world. So we turned the library into an ocean, as you do when you're a librarian, and connected to the whole primary curriculum. We made it a whole school thing. It was fabulous. I mean, typical me, we got carried away, and I got a remote control shark flying around the library, which the kids were desperate to have a go with. But, you know, making all those connections to the curriculum really, really made the visit worthwhile. And while it looked a little bit gimmicky, perhaps, having the shark, there was a lot of learning going on. I found more is more when we're making those links to curriculum. So Janice Santikhan, she writes a series of books about a little blue tuk-tuk. So we got a blue tuk-tuk and drove it around school to just kind of promote those connections to curriculum and get everyone on board so that the real learning could take place. Just being a little bit more sensible, I suppose, author visits provide real insight into the writing profession as well. And they actually offer quite a unique perspective for career advice. So I was quite pleased that we had a student send his first published novel to me recently. I thought, well, we must be doing something right in the library, because he was clearly like full of, you know, what he'd experienced at school. Right, I think I should probably stop on this first half of my part because I'll be running out of time. You know, hopefully to sum up, having author visits will promote all literacy skills, listening, comprehension, critical thinking, so much more. So maybe what we'll have next is a quick poll, and then we'll look at how to make sure these visits can go smoothly. Is that okay, Andy?
Thanks very much indeed, Sal. That's great. Before we go to the poll, there were some lovely comments coming in the chat box, and Alicia had some notes about organising a book festival. That was amazing to hear about. Alicia, could you just unmute yourself and tell us a little bit more about the book festival that you organised?
Yeah, sure. So I'm at the British School of Brussels, and we organise every 2 years a book festival where we invite authors from all around the world. So generally we do this as 1 week rather than author visits throughout the year or whatever. So this year we invited 15 authors from various levels of experience and expertise. So we had some really new ones as well as some really established authors. And we, as a book festival committee, so it's the librarians of the school, 2 of us, and the English department and a few other key English literacy coordinators in the school. So there are about 5 or 6 of us in the group. We get together and then choose some authors that we might like to invite, and then we reach out to them. So this happens over a year, and basically we have them booked about a year before we invite them, before we actually want to have the festival, so that it's well planned, because well-established authors are really booked up for a long time. And so we have key people who contact those authors, and then we have the authors come. We have book breakfasts with the authors, book signings. We have various, it depends on what the author wants to do. So sometimes we have whole school assemblies, sometimes we have small group writing groups. We have a parent evening where the parents come with the older students and the authors present to them. And yeah, it's all week. We just focus on different things. So we always have a poet as well who comes and we have a poetry slam as part of our thing, which often happens just after it, because if it happens during the festival, it's too busy. So we get them inspired, and then afterwards it's, the rolling on thing. We have bookmaking things that continue on for weeks or months after the thing. So it's really inspiring for the children. And we had the authors give feedback, and they all felt very sad and embarrassed to have to give their invoices, because they felt that it was such a great experience for them, and that they'd been invited. So yeah, one of them even likened it. Yeah, one of them even likened it to the big book festivals that you have in England. I don't know what they're called.
Yeah. And I think with the British School of Brussels, you've got such an amazing opportunity, a wonderful school, and just so much going on there. So I think as an inspiration for us, that's great as well. There are some big names, there are some other people, there are all sorts of things going on that people can actually pick up and share with each other. So I'm really grateful for that contribution, Alicia. I'm conscious that we're at 9 o'clock UK time. We're going to go on for a little bit, for 15 more or so minutes. So we're going to be open. We're going to keep it open. Hope you can stay with us, but we'll quite understand if you have to leave us. Everybody will have lots of other commitments in the day. But before we go on, I'll just launch the poll that that Sal has put together. Which of these factors are most important for an effective school author or illustrator visit? Is it supportive school leaders? Is it a healthy book budget? A great author? Effective marketing? Or well-behaved and motivated students? There's your choice. Come on, and let's have some answers to that, because I think getting sort of a background to what helps organising a visit like this, or indeed what makes anything work with regard to library development, is going to help each other as we go forward here. So we've got a lot of people think it's the supportive school leaders that's going to be very important, and that's coming out at the top of the range at the moment. Just going to give you a couple more seconds to do this, and then I'm going to close the poll. Here we go, and sharing the results here. Yeah, very clearly it's the supportive school leaders that are going to be critical in making a success of an author's visit, and I dare say any other initiative that you wish to see as well. Okay, so I'm going to close that one down and ask Val to go to the next slide, and Sal, just to wrap us up, please.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's it. While we're on the right one.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't catch the lady's name. I was just speaking, but wow, that sounds an absolutely fabulous week's event. 15 authors managing that. I take my hat off to you. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very busy, but well worth it indeed.
Yeah. Right. So, sorry, Andy, go on.
Just to say, and it's these things that the kids remember. This sticks in their minds, and this is so important. Is those special events that you guys put so much time into over the course of your work that the kids appreciate and the teachers really love as well, in my experience. So getting this thing together and saying to each other, yes, it is worth it. You can do it. And really, in many ways, the sky's the limit when you're thinking through what you can do for your library. Sal, back to you.
Okay, so what, if you give me another 5 minutes and I can
Go on, go for it.
Go with Plan the Visit. Okay, so how to make this visit really successful then? Well, like you were just saying, we need to be positive, we need to be enthusiastic, and we need to be tolerant, because perhaps other people won't always see, the value in what we're doing. Hence why I was just trying to clarify those points earlier. So we have to build good connections with everyone, put in the legwork, sow those seeds. We need to make it a shared experience so that everybody feels part of it, with a salesperson, with a negotiator, with the event planner. As you all know, a librarian wears many hats much of the day. As we were saying, the big authors, they're booked up maybe a year, even 2 years in advance. But one thing I always think is crucial is to get our dates on the calendar. Okay, I think for me, it's like, do that before anything else. Bagsy my spot on the school calendar, because there's so much going on and we need to think through what makes a good date. So think about what other events you want to avoid, what you'd like to coincide with, which year groups you'll focus on, and why is it that year group's turn rather than a different one's. Think about what's been studied at that point, who might not be able to make it, what subject areas will link in well. You don't want to plan a whole visit for upper secondary school and then find that the GCSE and IB exams are going on, so that those 2 year groups are missing anyway. Small things, but think about, if particular groups of teachers are busy at a certain time, try and build in what works for them as well, because we don't want them to be too exhausted to enjoy the event. So check with the curriculum leaders, are their topics staying the same for the next year, or if they're changing, and then see if the authors that you'd got in mind can perhaps accommodate topics that are new to them and might already be on the curriculum. So really, yeah, I'm exhausted. All I've done is say, let's get a date on a calendar, and we've already seen there's a lot to think about. So let's just start early with all our planning and promotion, okay? By the time everyone gets there, everybody should have seen the flyers, the posters, the emails, the school notices. I think when the author walks into the school, full stop. When the author walks into the school, they should feel like a celebrity. But if your budget is small and you can't afford to buy a big name, then let's make them big by the time they get to us. So I'd say drip in the promotion about the visiting author in the weeks leading up to it. Utilize every school communication channel that's available to you. Don't forget to get the PTG involved. Use the library ambassadors or the library monitors to promote competitions, activities. Get them to get their own teachers enthused, and that amplifies all the cross-curricular benefits that I was talking about earlier. So we've got our date. We've started early with the planning. And again, this kind of sounds obvious, but have a really clear shared planning document. However, a word of warning, if you're sharing it early, make sure it says provisional in big letters at the top of it, because you don't want to get all the teachers wound up by kind of them having certain dates and events in mind, then it all changes anyway. So what's going to go on this wonderful document? Well, we're going to need the name and the contact information of the visitors, obviously, and the emergency information, dates and times. I can't begin to think how you could plan for 15. I think we had about 6, and that was plenty. But the venues, yep, you'll need your venues, booking. You'll need to know whether the people are staying full days, half days. You'll need agreement from the different department teams about their involvement. Add on there the travel arrangements. Think about accommodation, particularly if you're sharing your author with other schools, then you'll need to think, will you want to house them in a kind of place central to all the schools, or will you move the authors perhaps so that they don't have far to travel at all? Don't forget to think about catering and meals, subject always close to my heart. Note any special dietary requirements or restrictions. Make sure you don't abandon your author at lunchtime, because they can feel a bit lonesome, you know, in this new place. So if you've got last minute organising, just ask someone else to take them to lunch. Yeah, make sure that you just look after them as well as you'd hope to be looked after if you were the visiting author. When Harry Baker came to us, and he was a sweetheart, but he was a bit lonesome on an evening, or I was worried that he was going to be. He came to us, I think, for dinner once, but he was far too young really to be interested by my company. So what we did was we arranged for a group of the young go-getting teachers to look after him and take him out, and he had a fabulous time, I think. Of course, make sure that your budget covers the costs for that. We can't expect the teachers or the author to be paying for their entertainment. So back to your planning sheet, budget and financial aspects needs to be on there as well. Don't forget liability and insurance. I think from the UK now, it's called a ICPC check that you need if you're working in international schools. But make sure that you found out what is required, and make sure that's properly covered. I think I mentioned, didn't I? So we're going to need an agenda and a schedule. But remember things like staggered lunches if you're working across the whole school. Think about assemblies, and make sure that, you know, every tiny detail is covered. Think about how many people will be at your presentations. If you can, do something for parents. Clive Pigg, when he came to us, he was fabulous. He did a session with the PTG that was somewhere between a coffee morning and a comedy night. And yeah, it went down a storm. And I think then, you know, you have a successful visit, and then the next year people are, you know, they know that it's worth investing in having an author visit. So what else? Yeah, book orders, book signings. Think about how you're going to source the books, and build in time during the day for the authors to sell their books or sign their books. Maybe you'll do a book pre-order, or maybe you'll wait and sell it at the door. Think about technical requirements. Often I would find that people might say they don't need something, and then when it gets to it, they do. So again, my motto, more is more. So have your screens, your laptops, your microphones, your pens, papers, just basically get everything you might possibly need. Right, last thing really for me to talk about, two things, if I can just keep gabbling. So I know I'm gabbling, it's partly because I'm short of time. It's also a little bit because I'm nervous, if I'm honest, but let's keep going. Library displays. I think I love a good library display, both in the lead up, during and after the visit. Library displays, they look great, obviously, and that helps present your library well, but there's so much more than that. A good interactive display, I think, really enhances the learning. And of course, if you're enhancing the learning and looking good, you're going to have a higher status, you're going to have more funding, and life's going to be wonderful. So keep those displays going in the lead up, you know, to advertise it, but then also in the post event, because what we want is for the students to benefit long term. Okay, these visits should be fun, of course they should, but after all, we are trying to enhance their learning. So let's keep the spotlight on the authors and the illustrators' visits after the event, and displays are a great way of doing that and showcasing the work. Along with trying to, you know, you've had a good author visit, then let's get their work into the curriculum somehow. You know, be sure to thank the authors. I know Gail loves it when we send her students' work afterwards, and then she can use that on her own promotional websites and so on. And it's just nice to see, you know, that something's been successful.
And just before we go, Sal has written a tremendous article in International Teacher magazine about looking at visits from the author's perspective. All the links and backup material from this session can be found in the BSILN Community Members page. Thanks everybody, and see you again soon.